And welcome back to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Nationwide Arena, Columbus, Ohio. Once again, an historic sight for Michigan State. Second time they've advanced to the Sweet 16 out of this building. 15th time in Tom Izzo's career. His amazing, illustrious Hall of Fame plus career. There's a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame. And then there's guys that are in the Hall of Fame that are dang legends. This guy's a legend, the way he orchestrated this thing. Getting it together throughout the course of the season, culminating now. 7 days ago, I wasn't sure whether they could get enough of their crap together, and we didn't know what Michigan State's best basketball was going to look like. And this isn't their best basketball, but it was good enough to beat a very good team. It was enough of their best basketball, their best game of the season. Right now, when other teams are kind of floundering and sputtering, 16 are moving on. Michigan State's one of them. Paul Konyndyk, your thoughts before I start yelling at people.
Well, I think to me, it's one of the best games because they won in a way that maybe we didn't know that they could win. You know, we've seen them do this before. We haven't seen them shoot this poorly from three, but we've seen them win with defense and rebounding and stops before, but not against a team of this caliber.
Have they done it this year?
Yeah, I think so, but they've not against a team that is as complete as Marquette. You know, I think back to the Rutgers game. The first meeting, they played great defense. They played
the win at Penn State, which you said back then was huge.
I still think that's a huge win because of the circumstances. Michigan State was like they're flagging at that time with how many injuries they had and whatnot. But this is different. This is a Marquette team that does it on both ends of the floor. I know that Michigan State had a lot of stuff going to the rim at times. They did some impressive things, but this Marquette team plays really, really good defense, and it's not just what you see sometimes where you see the trapping team and they create some steals. I'm thinking of like a Mike Anderson type of team. No disrespect to him. He's had success in his career, but get a lot of steals and give up a lot of points. No, this isn't in that type of team. They make it tough on you to advance the ball with some of the trapping and stuff like that. But once you get in the half-court defense, they're really, really good. And they took away – I mean, they did a great job taking away Joey Hauser today. And Joey, to his credit, had 14 points and 10 rebounds. But they take away primaries. They're there on pretty much on inbounds plays. They were all over what Michigan State ran. I give Shaka Smart a lot of credit and his coaching staff a lot of credit, for being all over Michigan State. They did a nice job preparing, and I thought, Michigan State probably had more preparing to do, just because of with an Oso guy with a center that could pass. It changes the whole dynamic. But this is a really, really high caliber win for Michigan State, and they haven't done it for a while as far as advancing to the Sweet 16. But when you're a 7 seed and you have to beat a 2 seed, that's no.
It's like winning the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and this wasn't an Elite 8 caliber game, and I think Michigan State deserves a lot of credit because they proved to me that they can win in different ways against a good opponent, and that's something that that's something that if it can keep on continuing to carry over, that's big because there's other teams that shoot the ball as well as Michigan State that if they don't shoot threes, there's no way they're going to advance against this team.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State was, 2 out of 16, and Michigan State was 1 out of 15 at the time when Joey Hauser hit that triple. Hogard driving and kicking, three-pointer, had to have that one. That one went down. Michigan State had a lot of confidence and belief today. When Michigan State got after that quick start, they were full of themselves. They're excited, but the confidence and the belief, they've been ups and downs and, drama and soap operas like Izzo likes to have it through the course of the season, all building toward teaching moments and getting it as sharp as razor blade possible for a game like this. And there were some shortcomings. They were mad at Jaden Akins once when he didn't swing the ball. Something just as little as that. And I put in the game thread. We were right behind the bench. They were mad at Akins because in a half-court situation, rather than swinging it, he stopped and tried to create something, gave it up, got it back, missed a 3. And Izzo was fuming, said to get him out of there. And when it was going toward Akins to get on him, and Izzo it wasn't that huge of a mistake. It's just quality control right now. Crisis management is the way Izzo does this and advances. And Hogard was like, I got him, coach. A.J. Hogard was playing the Draymond Green role. Like, I got him. I'm going to tell Jay. And the more that Izzo knew that A.J. had him, the more angry Izzo got because he knew he had him. And it's just a thing he does. And all of that did was, and Akins stayed in the game, but it's quality control. Well, if they keep doing it, then you're just letting it happen, as Nick Saban says. And those little things all through 120 practices all season, and they get focused into a game like this, and it's amazing to watch it come together. And the coaches they've told them, once they lost to Ohio State, you win the first game, we'll win the second one for you, meaning the coaches. And that, and Woj got into that scout, and they were on Marquette's Marquette stuff, and Marquette's a great defense game in and game out anyway. So it was hard for Michigan State to do anything against Marquette, but Michigan State's defense rose up, and the players believe that the coaches can actually make this happen. Now, the players have to get it done. But there was a belief, Paul, against the number 2 seed that we're Michigan State, we're Tom Izzo, we got the best backcourt, and we're going to go up 18-5 or whatever it was.
That's why you play the schedule that you do if you're Michigan State. I mean, there's not any team that they're afraid of playing. And, like Marquette was a better team, in my opinion, this year than the Duke team that Michigan State lost to last year. You talk about the swinging stuff like that. Izzo was really mad about ball movement. I was sitting in the same spot for that game as it was for this one, and same thing behind the bench. And ball movement, move the ball, move the bleeping ball, and so it's the same kind of a thing. But I feel like the players felt like there's more dribbling in the second half, like down the stretch. There's a lot.
And Izzo said that was an adjustment because he thought, Marquette, the way they trap along the sidelines, he wanted to stay out of that. He thought Marquette's ball screen defense was really good. And going to Hauser's a little bit off because Marquette was so good clutching and grabbing and get away with it. Like if you're Hauser and I'm Prosper, I was like grabbing you before the screen came and then around the screen and bumping all the way there. And Prosper's 6'8" with that reach, so he's making it hard to get there on time and then getting there with a bump. And so it's hard to get Hauser catch and shoot situations. Right. So they weren't going to go to set plays. So Izzo's like, spread it out and go 1-to-1. They went backyard there a little bit.
And you're talking about the the set plays or the moving the ball in the first half. That's a player thing. The players wanted to do that. There was a lot of talk amongst the veteran players talking to we can dribble out of this, we can do this. So there is a give and take with Michigan State.
The players said what they wanted to drive against them.
Yeah, they felt like.
Because Paul was in the locker room. I was not in the locker room. I was outside the locker room with Izzo. Paul was in there talking to the players.
I believe it was Joey Hauser who said that Izzo they were getting on us early about over dribbling, and we felt like it was like when we were out there playing against it that it was there and that it would be okay. And
attacking off the dribble.
Yeah, and I think that's something that was something. The coaches listen. The thing about Michigan State is people think that Izzo's rigid with him screaming and stuff like that. No, he likes the volatility. He likes the back and forth, and he will listen to players. Now if it didn't work, he would have thrown it right back in their face, but. That's what the benefit is of having a veteran team, and these guys play well together. They like each other, and these guys competed well. And today was really interesting because I felt like the adversity that they faced. This was a team that as soon as AJ Hogarth picked up his third foul, I'm like, wow, that's not good. And I understand that Marquette's Tyler Kolek had the same issue. He had the same foul trouble, but Michigan State doesn't turn the ball. I mean, they don't force turnovers the way Marquette does. So if you don't have ball handlers out there that you have complete faith in, and then also without Hogarth out there, that's one less guy that can drive to the basket. But it's pretty impressive. Madi Sissoko has foul trouble. He was a big part of why they had an 8 rebound advantage.
He was a factor.
He was a big rim protector. But then Carson Cooper, I think, gave them good minutes today. In a situation that was more difficult than what he faced against USC. This was like intermediate class or master class for him, and he didn't. It wasn't perfect, but he was better than functional, and
he didn't blow many leaks.
Yeah,
a couple mistakes here and there, and they got on him about it. But 15 minutes, 4 fouls. Yeah. I mean, he was a factor too.
And I want to go back to the backcourt.
A freshman playing his best at the end, like we talked about a few weeks ago.
And the thing about him is, he can move his feet, and I think he's doing a better job. For a freshman, he does a really nice job of defending with his lower body and not slapping down, with his hands. That's something a lot of freshmen do. I think he stays vertical, in that verticality thing better than most freshmen that I've seen at Michigan State, and that's a benefit to him. Now, he hasn't really been in a situation where he has to shoot a lot of free throws. I mean, because he could be a liability and that kind of thing. And Madi did hit a couple free throws today, so that was big for him. But a lot of guys contributed in a lot of different ways today, and this is one of the better team wins that at this level, at this point in the tournament against this level of opponent that I can remember. You and I were talking about the Pittsburgh game back in 2008 or 2012 or whatever. the one out in Denver, this was it was on that level. This was on the level of the last time we saw around a 32 game here.
It was 2008. That was Neitzel's last year, 2008.
Yeah, so this is another one on the level of that St. Louis game in terms of drama-filled, physical back and forth
against University of St. Louis.
University of St. Louis and here, and that
2012.
That was a tough game too, and like Joe. The guy
that one was different. It was almost expected against an opponent that was better than anyone thought,
right.
And they knew they earned it. But this had a little bit more of a oh my gosh, we did something to celebrate. That one was like relief, move on. Last time they went to the Sweet 16, the year they went to the Final Four and lost to Texas Tech. That's when Cassius Winston beat Duke down in D.C. Second round. That game, Michigan State's a higher seed, beating Minnesota, a Big Ten team, in Des Moines, and Minnesota had more fans there because it's the first time they'd gone to like the second round in forever. That was a relief and move on type of situation. Great accomplishment, but that's the way it is when you're a higher seed. When you're coming from the deck, a lower seed, beating Pittsburgh and Denver that time, I can go back all the way back to 2003 when Michigan State had been faltering a little bit, and they played Florida, whom Izzo hated at the time for various reasons,
right.
Including some shady recruiting. And Izzo, he took down several people in one fell swoop that day, running Florida off the court in Florida. That one had some appreciation to it because of that angst. Mm-hmm. Now, he smoothed things out with Donovan later on. Donovan never knew how much Izzo was angry with things back then. This one, it was classic friendly competition. So you don't have that part of it. There's no, hatred at all. So there's a lot of mutual respect. But in terms of what Michigan State was up against and how Michigan State was, the ups and downs of the season, how they were criticized, just like when they beat Florida, when Florida was a 2 seed down there, Michigan State was criticized. And Michigan State had won a national title in 2000, Final Four in 99, Final Four in 01. 02, they go one and done. And if you're too young to remember, believe it, in 03, there were people stupid enough to rip on Tom Izzo in 2003. Those of you that are old enough, remember it back then.
I do.
3 years after a national damn championship, they were on his ass. Came back, kicked the crap out of Florida. 20 years later, he's doing this. It's good to be alive.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessary. The righteous anger is cool and all that, but
I get frustrated. That's why I passed off to you earlier, because if I didn't stop talking, I was going to start yelling at people.
But it is what it is, and that's
because the people that were ripping on Michigan State at halftime in the Nebraska game. Every year we have to go through this. You and I in Denver back in 2008, we had a VCast just like this, talking about the people that had given up on that team and criticized Izzo. Is Izzo's ours best days behind him? That was 15 years ago,
right?
And we're doing it again
I'll go back
at going to a Sweet 16.
Go back to the 2000.
Every time we do this, I think they're going to learn.
No, they're not.
And it's a small portion. It's not all of them. And I don't mean to yell at everybody to get at a couple of them. But I don't understand that, Paul.
Yeah, especially we're sitting in the hotel room today, sitting there watching Kentucky play Kansas State, before this game, and they're talking about this is the first time Kentucky's advanced to the Sweet 16 since I don't remember, was it 2015?
If they won,
if they'd won,
which they didn't.
And I go back to the 2019. I got a whole bunch of angry texts from people after Michigan State lost that game down at Louisville. Michigan State didn't end up going to the Final Four for that year, but people
lost to Louisville in November.
Yeah,
in the ACC Challenge.
This is over. This team sucks. This kind of thing. I think. I'm not going to go rehash all the times where Michigan State surprised people, but I will just.
How many times do you have to watch a Rocky movie before you realize Rocky wins at the end? A lot of times. I know Rocky didn't win in Rocky 1, but
I don't know. But I just think it's kind of silly. I think people need to enjoy basketball.
Yeah.
You
know how many programs and fan bases would just love to have this to be following a team like this?
Yeah, I think I've used this example before, probably a couple of times when I've talked to people. At Marquette, when they had those 2 back-to-back Sweet 16 years a few years ago, people were printing off posters. Back-to-back Sweet 16 at Michigan State.
That was more than 10 years ago.
Yeah, at Michigan State, it's. People, they've had so much success, 15 Sweet 16s. That's mind-boggling when you think of it. But then if you listen to talk radio or banter, you think that they hadn't gone to the Sweet 16 in
2 weeks ago.
Years,
talk radio in Detroit 2 weeks ago.
But it is what it is, and I'm not going to get upset with it. But I will enjoy this because this was really high-level basketball. It was fun to be here, and it really, every possession mattered. And I think Marquette's had a great year. I said this, on the way over. We talked about it at breakfast as well. But I felt like the winner of this game has a really good chance to go to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing about.
We said that last night on the VCast.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing. And people will be like, yeah, because Marquette's really good, but it's a tough thing to deal with. I think even going back to the Pittsburgh game, we're talking about like out in Denver, that was Jamie Dixon's best
team he's ever had.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best teams Pittsburgh has ever had. They lose that game to Michigan State, and who knows what might have happened if they had advanced to,
Memphis was waiting, so that was a
right,
special Memphis
but
team.
It was still maybe it's you just never know. And I just felt like there's been a lot of really good teams over the years. This is one of Michigan State's best wins that I can remember in the round of 32, arguably right up there with anything. This is one of the best teams in college basketball. I would put this up there with that, with the 2009 win against Louisville. I mean,
and that was the Elite Eight regional final,
right? And this is better. This is a better team in my opinion. This Marquette team than that Louisville team, because that Louisville team was, they had a lot of talent, but they weren't connected, to use a Tom Izzo phrase. And I felt like this Marquette team is special. And
I think this Marquette team would be. Even that Louisville team was number one seed in the whole tournament, but I think this Marquette team would beat that Louisville team.
Instead of talking about rehashing about how people should be grateful and they should finally figure out that Michigan State does do good things in the month of March, I think we ought to take some time to give some props to Michigan State's backcourt. This is the second straight game where Michigan State has played a backcourt where there were, quote, elite players, and Michigan State's guards have outperformed those guards. Now, A.J. Hoggard had 5 turnovers today and only 4 assists, but he did what he needed to do to help this team. He made really tough shots when he had to. He played good defense, and he didn't flip out when he had the foul trouble. He kind of played within himself. Again, you talked about the Hauser 3 in the corner. That was set up by Hoggard, and we've seen that so many times.
How many assists would he have if Michigan State had just made some open threes?
I don't know, but it's one of those games where you're like Malik Hall missed like 3 or 4 open threes in the first half. We can't rehash all that because there was a ton of them. To me, it was impressive that even in some of those late shot clock scenarios, the Michigan State was even getting threes, because but Marquette's defense was so dang good out there at times. Michigan State was having to execute at a high level just to get shots, and sometimes that gets overlooked. When those shots are missed, but. A lot of props need to go out to like Tyson Walker, the job that he did, and it is not easy to play that many minutes against this Marquette team. You have the physical toll it takes from like trying to deal with the press. Then you have to run around and chase really good guards, and then not only that, you have to put the team on your back to finish the game. And the job that Michigan State did down the stretch, shooting free throws, like Joey Hauser told me, like he's like. He was getting the crap beat out of him, and he's not complaining about it. He's just they're physical, and they did a great job. I mean, Prosper's a good defender, and they're, every time I tried to come off a screen, I was getting thrown around, and he was like, man, I was so tired and so sore by the end of the game. And
wait a minute, Paul, these people say you should be able to play 40 minutes.
Yeah, you can't play 40 minutes against these guys. I guess that's one of the benefits of being able to go into a locker room afterwards and you see what dudes look like. They got blood running down their, bodies in a lot of instances. Claw marks.
Zach Edey the other night against Fairleigh Dickinson, his arms. I told Jake Laskauer I entered. I'm like, look at his arms. His arms from like here down were just red, pink, because he had just been taking a bunch of Ric Flair chops all night long. And today, Hauser, like Prosper, who's a great defender, was called for a foul. Like his first foul was like 6 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah, and he was downright medieval on Joey Hauser today, and I give them credit for being like. They do it in places where you're not necessarily going to get called.
They push the envelope.
And that's a credit to them. And Prosper's a good player. But Joey Hauser, man, he had a man's game against a former team.
And he didn't get frustrated and didn't force anything.
Right. And that's one of the things I think, so many other people, if they came up against their old school.
Cool customer.
And he was like, it meant a lot. The emotion finally caught up to him. When his shoe came off at the end, and he was retying the shoe and the chance of Joey. And that's when the tears started coming and the emotion, and he was looking for his parents. And then he had to kind of stifle it all back down to finish that game. But
that was a moment. Izzo's coached 700 games, whatever it is. That was a moment right there. And
it was cool, man. The game, when it started, him getting booed by Marquette fans when he was announced, and then the way it finished, that was really, really great deal. And the fact that Joey didn't bring that, he's not a rah-rah guy. Everybody knows that Joey played at Marquette. He made it clear to his teammates, hey, I don't dislike these guys. I don't know any of them. I didn't play with any of them, but
and he never spiked the football. He was never spiteful about it.
But AJ Hogard made sure he reminded everyone that Joey played for Marquette. And that's another one that shows me that AJ is starting to grow as a teammate. And Joey's a great example today for AJ and for every other guy on the team. You do not have, you can be happy winning a game by doing what you have within your personal control instead of trying to force the issue. And I think AJ did a great job. He made some really tough plays down the stretch, but the ball got to the guy, Tyson Walker, who's the one guy that you trust more than anybody else to penetrate and give you a 15-footer. And he is clutch, and he has been all season long, all year long. And this was big for Tyson Walker. He should be celebrated. He's an amazing kid, amazing defender, amazing all-around guard, and you don't find that very much in college basketball.
And I know a lot of Michigan State fans, they're astute basketball observers like yourself, have kind of envisioned that. And everybody talks about the NCAA tournament. It's about guards, and guards make the difference in the NCAA tournament. Of course, Marquette had two very good ones. But through all the things Tyson Walker did, going back to last year when he went off against Illinois and when he went off against Purdue this year in a losing effort, scoring 30, that ability to do that, I'm sure a lot of people in the back of your minds were thinking that can come in handy in a crunch time NCAA tournament situation. And it came home to roost in this situation. Not only that, but when Hogard got in foul trouble in the first half, who has to play more minutes in the first half? Tyson Walker played 18 minutes in the first half.
And he has to do that point guard.
At this level, at this clip, came out in the second half, and Michigan State gave him a little 2-minute rest, probably about 8 minutes to go or so. And he ended up playing 36 minutes, which is a lot. But that little rest right there helped him. He went right back out there and hit a medium-range jumper as soon as he went back into the game. That rest, I think, helped him. And the ball in his hands, it was key. And the shot he made on that drive, that left-handed circus shot, if you're Marquette, it's like, man, that's if we're going to go down, a guy makes a shot like that, you tip your hat.
He's good at those, too, man. When you're that size.
And then there's another time we're right behind the bench, and it's interesting what you say about how the players wanted to drive because they felt they could do that rather than some set play stuff because of how well Marquette was clogging things up and kind of it was more like Michigan State versus Wisconsin, bumping cutters and grabbing, circa 2000 than recent basketball. But interesting what you say about how Michigan State thought that in space they could go to work on them. Not long after that, I assume, because I saw it. There was a time when Hogard had it, maybe 15 on the clock. It wasn't real late, and Montgomery yelled, "Go around him!" And Hogard knew he had the green light because Hogard has been, they've had a bridle on him a little bit about when not to look for your shot and when to set others up. When they said green flag go, he just heard it, went around him, went to the lane, got a layup. Just a powerful play, waiting to get that button pushed, and those are the type of things that make Izzo so happy within the system. Hogard. Racehorse basketball at the end. So many things had to come through against a very good team. A lot of heroes, and just amazing to watch this stuff.
We talk about Tyler Kolek being a physical, powerful guard. Michigan State had zero problems with the physicality aspect of it, and I think Tyler Kolek, as good a player as he is, he had. The one thing that we kind of overlook sometimes because some of the Big Ten teams they make adjustments, they see Michigan State and they kind of attack them in a certain way. We forget the value or the force that comes with, or how stressful it is to play against a team that has three guys that can play quality defense
when they're tuned in.
Right, when they're tuned in, and Jaden Aiken. Tyson Walker. The only time Tyson Walker hasn't played good defense this year is when he's dog tired, and so he's a guy that can play 36 minutes at a high level. He's the only guy in this team that can do that. I think he's wired like that. Jaden Akins played good defense today, but Tyler Kolek was off, and it's a classic example of when you cut the head off. As good as Cam Jones is, and that guy's special. The job that they did on Kolek and the backcourt in general was really impressive to me.
Kolek, he's a great passer. We only saw it once or twice today. 5 assists, foul trouble in the first half, 6 turnovers. 5 assists, 6 turnovers. This guy's assist-to-turnover ratio for the season was 13-4. I mean, tremendous. And Michigan State was taking away his avenues, and he said, he didn't make any excuses. He's like, man, they were great. Michigan State played good defense, and he feels like he let his team down, and he was confused. I don't mean to belittle him at all, but this was one of those school sessions for a younger player. He'll be back and he'll be great, and this Marquette team has young players that are going to be great. This was a school session for them, and Michigan State administered it.
Well, I think one of the things that makes Michigan State tough on defense, and this is what we did see maybe like in the Rutgers game. There's times where they get a lot of deflections. Those guys are so athletic, and it doesn't take a lot, but you deflect it a little bit, and some of those passes are there in other instances against different opponents. So Michigan State's got really good athletes at the guard position, that are kind of pesky, and those deflections lead to uncharacteristic turnovers.
Steals these last two games.
Yeah.
Michigan State's not really a team that emphasizes steals a lot. If they come, they come.
It's
but
funny.
in this game, I'm not really sure how they're happening. A lot of them.
I think it's because of I think it's because of scouting, man. Yeah. They know what's going to happen. Those guys are able to determine. I think they're so well prepared right now that. They're all up in it, and
they're dialed in.
It's not the kind of steals that I hate. The guys, the risk taking. I'm going to get out of position just so I can try to make a 10% type play and give up a basket. These are legit. I'm in position, but I'm going to jump coverage here, and I know I'm going to get it. There's a big difference between the grab butt kind of turnovers that Brandon Dawson used to drive me crazy with.
They try to get him to stop doing it because if you get one here and there, you get him up two later or two or three.
And these are sound
it's coming to them,
and it's good stuff. It's good to see.
Now Michigan State with these guards, Michigan State's had moments where maybe not everybody is completely strong or physical or healthy with Hall or Akins and Hogard, on and off. Ohio State game, freshman comes in the Big Ten tournament, scores 20 or whatever it was against him, Gale. In this situation, NCAA tournament, you get everybody with all their ability and all their talent, and in this case, all their determination and will, and you get everybody locked in at the same time. Throughout the course of the season, they couldn't really get everybody at the same time. Some games maybe Akins was and Walker was, but Hogard wasn't, or Hall couldn't really quite do it. But now, big dance time, NCAA tournament time, when you have to do it, Izzo's imploring, it's win or go home time, no more my bads. And he got on them, of course. Great lesson at Ohio State. Izzo's done it before. Look at the banners, and you get all that talent and all that learning, and you get them all focused at the same time, which seems like it should be easy to do, but it's not. Izzo's been working at it. But when it happens and they are focused, we've seen defense the last two games against good teams look like an Izzo tournament team, which we hadn't really seen all season. A couple times, statistically, they were good defensively. But we said it last night at the VCast. I had great respect for Marquette. Selection Sunday, I'm like, Marquette was so good. I'm like, for Michigan State to beat that Marquette team 7 days ago, I'm like, Michigan State has not demonstrated that they can play like that all year. Didn't know if they could get all their crap together. They've gotten it together, and it's amazing. And like we said in the VCast 2 nights ago, if Michigan State, it's the first time we said it all year, if Michigan State goes to the Final Four, I theorized that if they get there, this game against Marquette, I said last night, would be the most difficult hurdle. Now we'll see with Kansas State. Tennessee was great against Duke. There's some more rock fights ahead. We'll have to wait and see. That's getting way ahead of the thing. But Michigan State's going to New York now against the Kansas State team that's not been in the Sweet 16, I don't think, in a long time.
Yeah, and that's going to be another chance. And there's been a lot of talk in this one coming up. Michigan State's guards, because I think when you're not all Big Ten guards, and there's 14 teams, and there's a lot of good guards in the Big Ten, and there's a lot of, in Michigan State has guys that probably maybe should have maybe a little bit more recognition in certain areas, but you don't have really gaudy stats. And so you're going up against guards that are like All-Americans or whatever in other conferences. They're scoring 18 to 20 points a game, like Boogie Ellis was, or Cam Jones tonight. Maybe you don't get your recognition, but they're going to have another deal where Kansas State's got a heck of a point guard,
Noel,
but it's going to be different for him too, because he does, he throws a lot of one-handed skip passes and a lot of stuff that that maybe he can get away with in certain instances. Can you do that against Michigan State? Like, as good as Tyson Walker's playing right now, I like the fact that Tyson Walker cares as much, if not more, about his defense, takes it more personally, to have someone score on him than he takes wanting to score on offense. And that's a rare attribute, and that's going to be another really cool matchup. That's going to be really fun to watch. Tyson Walker against a dude from Kansas State who is really fun to watch. But Michigan State's again, going to be better prepared for them than they are prepared for Michigan State. They're going to be hungry, but they're going to be confident they can win in different ways. They don't have to do X like on offense to win. They can win in different ways, and their defense can turn into offense. I think one of the things that was good for Michigan State by driving, putting the ball on the floor, they got to the free throw line quite a bit. And that's the only way you could get to the free throw line against Marquette with the way the game was being called, because Izzo was working the officials all the time on some of the the mauling that Joey Hauser was getting, other guys were getting, and trying to come off screens. It wasn't working. That the only way these guys were going to send people to the line, besides short of a horse collar, would be like driving to the basket. And
with Kansas State, I mean, Noel, quick little guy, but you got Tyson Walker against a little guard. Tyson's defense, you can have a lot of pride in that, but also Noel's going to get 6 eyes. Because the supporting cast, he's got the one good guy that transferred from Florida, and he's excellent, but might not be enough around him. We'll talk about that. It's only, 4 days away. Thursday they're playing. So it's right back at it. And it's interesting that right here is where Michigan State did the Sunday-Thursday turnaround to go out west after the St. Louis game, out west to Louisville. Louisville had an extra day. In this case, Kansas State won't have an extra day, so that's going to be even. And you're going, credit to the NCAA for not screwing that thing up.
And you're going. I'm
going to yell at someone else, Paul, if you don't stop me.
I'm going to stop you right now. And you're going east instead of you're going east, so that's a little bit different. It's a short flight.
Secondly, back when they beat St. Louis and went out west, they were stuck. Michigan State was stuck at the airport for like 3-4 hours because there was a tornado warning here. This time, they bust down. I guarantee that was an Izzo thing. I think there's an NCAA rule that within so many miles there's an option. I don't know. But this time, game's over, bust out. He didn't want to wait on a Sunday, Thursday to be waiting at the airport for any crazy reason. Now he's going to New York. And this is what happens with Izzo when he's been doing this for a quarter century. When he's in New York last time in the tournament, played UConn. UConn won the national title. And Izzo was so mad in the Elite Eight after they beat, Virginia, had the one-day prep. Izzo's so great at the one-day preps. But he was just angry because the hotel was too small for them to have enough space to do their walkthroughs appropriately. Secondly, they were caught on bus transit from the arena to the hotel to get there to practice and stuff. Blew like an hour to go a mile. And Izzo didn't really say it on the record because he didn't want to make excuses. But the one-day prep thing that Izzo loves at New York against UConn, he felt like he was in a straitjacket a little bit. Wasn't able to do his whole thing. So this time in Ohio, fool me twice, shame on me. No planes, bus. I don't know what they're going to do in New York, but they probably mapped it out. They've played there so often since then. Yeah. They know which hotel they have has the size of the ballrooms they want to have. So when you're doing it for a quarter century, those things I'm sure they're on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's fun, isn't it, Paul?
You don't get caught off guard twice. Yeah, it is fun. This past weekend, this first weekend of the tournament. I know it's stressful sometimes when you watch your team play, like for some fans, but this is the best weekend of sports in a way. We're here covering it, but watching games in the background, for you at home, making excuses not to go to work, making excuses not to go to school, your kids making excuses not to go to school, that kind of thing. It is a great time of year, and to be one of 16 teams is significant.
Again.
And, you can't take that kind of stuff for granted.
We do.
You Michigan State fans do, but you look at a school like Purdue that's had so many dang good teams. And I don't want to rip on Purdue, but I'm just saying, like, or Temple when John Chaney was there. Like, one of the programs that I respect more, as much as anybody. John Chaney at Temple. Chaney's one of the best coaches of all time. They didn't get.
Never got a Final Four.
Right. And, like, Sweet 16 is not a Final Four, but you got to get there to get there. And this is a nice step for Michigan State with this season, and they have the pieces to advance further if they continue to make progress and continue to execute like we've seen them execute this past weekend.
Well, all season, people that follow college basketball have said it's wide open. It's going to be more wide open than ever. We'll see, because Alabama looks like they're gaining steam. They might be a cut above, but everybody has said it's wide open. It's anyone can win this thing. And when people said that, I didn't hear a lot of people, including Michigan State, right, in the possible contenders. That might have been a mistake because they're still alive. They're still dancing. Headed to New York. I think they're going to be favored against Kansas State. Kansas State was in the top 15 for several weeks this year. We'll talk about them more this week.
Theory on that. Whoever gets to 20 wins first is in the top 15.
And they've won games. They're a little bit unorthodox. Shot selection gets a little wonky sometimes. They beat Kansas one time doing that. I think they beat them once. We'll see if that continues to serve them well or not. We'll see. One more thing, Prosper goes 3 out of 7 from three-point range, hit some big ones. And there were times earlier in the game he missed 1 or 2, and I was like, they'll give him that. Well, later on he made those, and he's a pretty good three-point shooter. But Marquette actually got plus play out of him offensively because other things were shut down. And you would think that, when Marquette, as good as they are, when they go 11 out of 27 from 3 and they hold Michigan State to 2 out of 16 from 3, there's no way that Michigan State can win that game,
right,
except that Konyndyk was held down so much, except that Sissoko was a factor. Those things came around for Michigan State. They made it happen. It was great theater here in Columbus. It was a privilege to be a part of it. And those of you, I'm sorry for the 3% that I yelled at, Paul. I want to apologize to them.
No, you don't.
And you're right. And you were right to call
you
a
should
flagrant.
apologize to me because I have to sit through the tirade.
All right, sorry about that, Paul.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. But so he called a flagrant foul on me, and you're correct. But I guess I'll sign off. Should I do some push-ups? Should I just run some laps?
No,
stairs?
I guess the other thing
I'll do stairs.
The other thing is, if you think about it, these kind of events can be a springboard for people to have their careers jump-started or reignited. And I look at Mady Sissoko today, like how happy he was in the locker room, how joyful he was to be able to get rebounds, and he got way up on those rebounds. Two-handed rebounds, powerful. And I know Marquette statistically isn't a great rebounding team, but those were some tough contested rebounds that Michigan State was getting. And, there's one point where Tom Izzo was yelling great rebound to Mady, and he had to yell it loud enough where Mady thought he was getting yelled at. But that was a big game for him. I know the one block late that was huge. It's probably a goaltend. So what? He had another block after that. But Mady being a factor, being that aggressive, this is one of the hardest teams in the world that you could prepare for a big guy with the ball screens and stuff like that. And it's so difficult. So this is a feather in the cap to guys like Mady Sissoko, Carson Cooper, and these are things that they can grow from. And Mady had a really good day today, and that's that can get lost in some of it because he didn't have a double-double, but he had he continues to make catching the ball better. They're throwing him the ball better. Hogard just done a better job getting the ball where he needs to get it. And he's getting confidence. He's happy. He's smiling, and that's a big thing moving forward.
And the togetherness, when Izzo was going after Akins, Hogard protected him. When Sissoko was down on himself in the huddle because he gave up a couple things on his couple slips, and I think there was an interception where he may not have come back to the ball enough when they got an interception to go with it. Konyndyk had an interception about 5 minutes ago. Sissoko was as mad at himself like they'd never seen before, according to Izzo. But teammates were supporting him. Joey Hauser at the press conference yesterday, the throng of media from Milwaukee, the questions he was getting up at the podium, the questions he was getting in the locker room. The teammates see that and they're like, "Man, Joey's a guy. This is a situation here."
Mm-hmm.
So they rally around him, rally around Sissoko, protecting Akins. Izzo sees that, and that's some of the fabric getting stronger, and that's one of the reasons this team is getting stronger.
And then the other guy, Trey Holloman, this 2 games against good guards where he came in and gave some spot minutes.
No slippage.
And that's a really big deal that goes unnoticed. And he was playing high-level defense. I thought he was going to be a high-level defender when I saw him earlier in the season. Then he kind of hit that freshman wall, playing high-level defense again. And, man, I can't tell you how valuable that is to have a guy that can come off and give you 4 or 5 minutes in the first half, so a dude like Tyson Walker or a dude like Jaden Akins can finish a game. Mm-hmm. That's just it's a big deal because usually the guys coming off the bench are dudes that you're going to give 5 or 6 minutes to because they want to score, and they're liabilities. But you want to keep them in the program as they develop. Trey Holloman's coming in playing a role. Carson Cooper coming in playing a role, and that's a big deal.
It's pitching middle relief, and not giving up any runs.
The other thing, last thing I'm going to say is Malik Hall getting an offensive rebound in traffic, on a night where I know his foot was hurting because his shoe came off a couple times, and he was in a little bit of pain, and he had to work really hard, and he had to really saddle up, and he's playing through pain today. But for him to go and get an offensive rebound in a situation where you're closing out an opponent, we've seen a lot of games where guys didn't get offensive rebounds or didn't get cutouts or something like that. That was another big deal. That's a program win when a guy that's hurting goes up and gets an offensive rebound.
Offensive rebound is called a timeout, and you knew Michigan State was in control. I can't remember what they did coming out of that timeout, but I think
that's when Tyson Walker hit a 15-footer right after that.
Was it when they spread it out and he went to work with that one?
I don't know if it was from the elbow or the free throw line, but I think he hit it, and it was good.
Man, a lot of fun. Guess we'll wrap it up now. I'm going to settle down a little bit. Got some more work to do. Appreciate Konyndyk and all the work he's done this week. It's been great. Jake Leskow, great job. And Noah and Jason back in Michigan doing a great job all over the place. Very happy for the Michigan State fans. A lot of fans here today. It was loud. It was an impact. The players felt it, and that was helping too. That helped. They know that they're a part of something bigger than themselves, as coaches like to say, and you could hear it today.
It was good from both sides, man. I haven't been to too many games where there's more Michigan State fans obviously than Marquette, but there was a good enough, a good smash. There was a really good, let's just say it's 60-40. Or something like that. Maybe not that, but it was a vocal Marquette smattering, and there's a lot of back and forth between go green, go white, and then we are Marquette kind of crap, or whatever they do. And it was neat. It felt live. It was nice to have this in the Midwest where you had two strong, proud fan bases out there, this was a good program. This is good for college basketball because both teams play hard. They get after it, and I've got respect for both coaches. Michigan
State's the only team in the Big Ten going to the Sweet 16. Big Ten's going to get some crap for that. I said coming to the tournament.
It doesn't matter because Michigan State's there. There's been a lot of other years where it's been like that. And Michigan State makes a run, and nobody really cares. If you're Michigan State fans, you don't care because you're the one Big Ten team that advanced. Do you really care if Indiana gets dumped on? Do you care if Purdue gets dumped on? Probably not.
People rip on the Big Ten next year, too, and things, but this is what the Big Ten was, and I said this before the tournament. The Big Ten had 13 teams that were round of 32 capable teams. And that's what Penn State was. It's a tough seeding because all the Big Ten teams are seeded 7, 8, 9, 10, so they have to play a number 2 seed in the second round. Indiana lost. They've been, inconsistent all year. Purdue choked, no question about that. But, Penn State, Maryland had to play Indiana. Penn State had to play Texas. Texas had to play Texas. Some of the other teams, Northwestern played UCLA tough. UCLA is a number 2 seed. Texas is a 2 seed. Alabama's a 1 seed. These are the teams the Big Ten are playing, and in most cases playing them tough in the second round. There's my point. I think the Big Ten had 13 teams that were round of 32 type of teams, and that includes Michigan, and that includes Rutgers, that includes Nebraska. I think they had 13 round of 32 teams.
And Ohio State at the end of the year.
And Ohio State.
Because they won. They won 4 out of their last 5.
So they're not Sweet 16 teams, but when you're in the Big Ten and you have to play a round of 32 NCAA tournament team every single game, 18 times out of 20, that's a tough schedule. That's a tough road to hoe. And even though there aren't a lot of teams advancing far, day in and day out, it's a bunch of round of 32 teams. We talked about that last night. Ohio State and Michigan too, if they got their crap together. But Ohio State, Michigan, Rutgers, and maybe even Nebraska would have beaten Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's going to the Sweet 16. Those are Big Ten teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament. They would beat Florida Atlantic.
On the other side with Michigan State, it's been a build up, and in all those games against those kind of pure group opponents prepared Michigan State for these moments.
Yes.
So whereas the Big Ten didn't, statistically didn't perform well in this tournament, Michigan State performed well because they went up on a nightly basis against, they went against an anvil of opponents in their peer group, and they had to play through that. They had to win close games. They had to play through adversity, and these guys are comfortable doing that. And I wonder too. I wonder Marquette. We talk about the plays that Michigan State made down the stretch. There's plays that Marquette didn't make, and they won comfortably in a lot of their games. They're playing as well as anyone in the country in the last 10 games. They probably hadn't lost a game in a month, right?
Yeah.
Having won 10 straight, and a lot of those were blowout victories. You talked to me. You and I talked about the win over Xavier in the Big East tournament. So. There's a value to being in close games and finding a way to win those.
Or losing and learning from it.
Exactly. If you take the lessons to heart.
All right.
So that's all I'm going to say.
I think I'm done too. I apologize. If I offended anybody, I apologize. Paul Konyndyk, they have to spend time with me. Great job this week. Leskow, great job. Thanks to the maggers out there. I'm sorry if I raised my voice. Paul Konyndyk, Associate Editor, SpartanMag.com. Jim Comparoni from Nationwide Arena, Columbus, Ohio. Side of the round of 2, second round. NCAA tournament, headed to the Sweet 16. We'll be there covering the Spartans for you. Next time, we'll see you once again in the VCast. Next time, we'll be in New York. For this time, from Ohio, you've been watching the VCast, SpartanMag.com.